This is Just a Few Questions. I'm Marc Sims. My guest is Marrianne McMullen. She is the author of Persuasive, 40 Lessons in Communicating for the Common Good. Welcome to the show, Marrianne McMullen.
Thank you, Mark. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you back. I got to raise the sound up. Okay, I'm looking at the little meter there. Okay, I think you sound okay. Tell us a little bit about your book.
All right, Mark. So a few years ago, right before the pandemic, I'm at a point in my career. I've been doing professional communications for over 40 years now. So I do a lot of workshops and seminars and teaching. And I realized over time that every time I would start to tell a personal story, everybody in the room would be paying attention. And I thought, I have got to capture all of the personal stories from my career that hold a strong communication lesson so that I could use them in workshops and classes and teaching and conference presentations. And so I started writing these stories down and looking for documentation of them. And then the pandemic hit. So I had a little more time on my hands to write, and I just started writing and realized I have a possible book here. So it just grew into something, and so it has 40 chapters, and each chapter is a story that illustrates a key lesson about communications. And then I also I have a model that I developed for planning communication campaigns. It's called the Persuasion Matrix. And including that and providing all the persuasion research background for it. When I pitched this book to Georgetown University Press was the 20th publisher I pitched it to. But because of that model, that kind of an academic model of a persuasion planning tool, the Persuasion Matrix, I think that's why Georgetown University Press bit and said, okay, we want to publish this. So it was published last August, and I've been out there trying to get people to read it ever since.
I wish that the public schools would teach, probably some do, they didn't do back in the day when I was going to school, of course, public speaking and selling. And so in the context of your book, is communicating well, with whether you're communicating with an individual or a group, is it like selling a product or service?
You know, there's a lot more research and background, as you might imagine, in how to sell a product than there is in how to convince people to do things that are good for themselves. So you do use in nonprofit communication and communicating for the common good, you do use lessons learned from commercial sales. So just give a common example that we often see. When you're driving through the country and you drive by a cornfield, you see the little signs at the end, and the little signs have seed numbers. That is a basic element of persuasion to the other farmers. The other farmers can look, they can observe and see, oh, that strain of corn's doing well. Let me write down that seed number. So in commercial products, they really want to focus on something called diffusion of innovations, where you segment your audience and you really want to go to your the people who will be the first ones to adopt your product, and then the next group, the early adopters. The innovators are the first group, and then the early adopters. So there's a whole field of marketing research that's rooted in this that we can also bring to bear. So I was in the Obama administration for 6 years. And after the Affordable Care Act was upheld by the Supreme Court, we started in earnest doing outreach to try to get as many people as possible to sign up for health insurance. So that was just a huge communication campaign that went on really for 4 years, his entire second term. And in doing that, we did apply some marketing research about who are the early adopters, who do we need to reach to get them to sign up for health insurance, what are the obstacles that stand in their way to getting it, and just really, persuasion is ultimately about really understanding where your audience is at and what stands between them, what they believe, what their habits are, and them doing what you want them to do. In this case, it was getting people to sign up for health insurance. So we really had to understand our audience and understand that the barriers to getting health insurance and plan our campaign around that.
Yeah, sometimes doing the right thing or having someone to do the right thing for themselves is a hard sell. You mentioned Obama administration. And so let's talk about, and in that part of the book, you talk about addressing problem employees. So whether somebody's a
Yes.
boss or a manager, they listen to this podcast, or just you could be the problem employee listening right now. How does a person, or how did you address problem employees?
Yeah, well, it's so crazy watching so many fantastic, I personally know fantastic employees in HHS, for example, getting the rug pulled out from under them right now during the Trump administration, getting fired. Typically in the federal government, it takes about 2 years to let somebody go. You just have all these documentation requirements and procedural requirements. You have to have several personnel reviews that happen every year. So one of the chapters of the book, I talked about letting go a person who was just a really problematic person, and how much effort it took to do so within the federal construct at that time. So, I don't know that I could I think all managers have a challenge. Your first responsibility is always to support the person and help them succeed where they are failing. But then ultimately, you employ people to do a thing that you need them to do. And if they can't do it, then the employment just doesn't work out.
I thought you were going to say you curse them out, read them a riot act, or like nowadays you're going to get a letter or email from Elon Musk if you keep this up. But,
Yeah, no. To the extent that you write them a letter, you make your expectations clear, and then you see if they can meet them. That's all.
Well, start writing those bad performance reviews and get them out of here because whether it's, I always have this theory, whether it's a classroom, a neighborhood, a block, or whatever, a job, there's always just a few people that mess things up. It's uncomfortable. But whether the person listens to podcasts, like I say, you're trying to talk to your children in your classroom or your employees. I know you got to know your audience. I got it. And some people you cannot really negotiate or sell. Either they don't have what you want, or they're impossible to deal with. How do you deal with people who you can't even have a win-win strategy with these people, or with a group, a win-win strategy with a group you're trying to deal with?
Yeah, audience targeting is really important when you're trying to do persuasion. You're trying to work with someone. You can't work with everybody. You can't persuade everybody of everything. Persuasion isn't a parlor trick. It isn't something that you can just, some magic bag of tricks that you can pull out of and make everybody do what you want them to do. No one could persuade me to vote for Donald Trump. And the thing is, no good communicator would even try, because they know I'm not an audience that's amenable to that message. So they would focus on the audience that is amenable to that message. So not everybody is going to, no matter how good of a communicator you are, you're not going to bring everybody along to where you want to go.
Yeah, I'm almost done. I had to quote, I forgot to bring it on my little notes here, but it's something, I think it's Ralph Waldo Emerson or something, and I'm going to paraphrase the quote because you see it different ways. Who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear words you're saying. And so, and you know the quote, everybody knows the quote, they should know the quote, but the point is that sometimes it's so impossible. You're trying to pick your audience. I got all that, but sometimes you are in a position where you have to speak to people who are damn near impossible, and that's my pet peeve. And sometimes do you have to rely on communication skills? If they may not like who you are, what you look like, or how you sound, then you have to rely on communication skills. And when I mean communication skills, of course, as we go into this world of AI, written and oral communication skills. So how good do you have to be to get your point across?
Yeah, and how much do you have to hang in? One of the things, as I was telling you before, I'm going to do a book event in Pilsen Community Books on Tuesday, April 22nd. And one of the things I'm doing is pulling out the lessons for right now, because we're in a really unusual historic period. So I went back to my book and picked out the lessons that are most important right now. And one of those things is we have to engage in conversation with people who we don't see things similar similarly with, and that is always a challenge, is to listen to other people who see something different, say how you see it, and still be able to shake hands at the end of that conversation. I think a lot of that has to go on in this country right now. We have to listen to each other, and we have to be civil, even if we don't convince each other to think the way we do.
When we close this podcast, you're going to close it out with a little wisdom and knowledge or something. You're going to drop a little wisdom and knowledge on these people. But first, let me say, Marrianne McMullen, thank you for being my guest. And now, give us a little wisdom and knowledge and close the podcast out.
We have to keep communicating. It's hard. You don't get along with everybody, and things get extremely polarized in our social media environment that we're in, but we have to keep relating to each other. We're all in this together. We're all in this city of Chicago together. We're in this country, the United States, together. And I have a lot of confidence that we're going to figure it out and still manage to move forward after the chaos that we're in right now. But it's going to depend on us all remaining open to each other.